I want to start with a story that you wrote, San Francisco Chronicle, breaking news story that I didn't know. So when the Niners signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a contract, he disappeared for several weeks, if not several months. This was news to me. Did the Niners, because I always thought Jimmy was kind of a team guy, but did they have buyer's remorse after they couldn't get a hold of him for 6 weeks?
Well, you and I both have kids who are, running with the cool crowd. So I think the term is ghosted. He ghosted them. I'm gonna have to check with my kids to make sure I'm saying that right. But yeah, Colin. So let's go back to 2017. They make the trade for Jimmy at the deadline, which surprised a lot of people, and they hadn't done a lot of thought beforehand. And Belichick called Kyle. They did the deal for a two, and then he came in and won those last 5 games after they were already eliminated, and they were calling him Jimmy Jesus and chanting MVP at Levi's. And so they paid him, and he was, for a minute, the highest paid player in football. And I covered that press conference for NFL Network. We carried it live. It was a ray of sunshine for a franchise that had had a rough few years, with the Harbaugh firing and then Tomasula and Chip Kelly, and they were all fired up. And then, yeah, the way it was told to me by several members of that coaching staff, then he just kind of stopped communicating for weeks and weeks. And that is not normal behavior for a franchise quarterback, let alone one that you just, made the highest paid guy in football. So that kind of caught them off guard. So I don't want to say Jimmy's not a team guy. He's very, very well liked in that locker room. He's a very likable guy. He's a tough player, and he, played through injuries last year and almost got them to a Super Bowl. But it definitely frustrated his bosses, and it happened again that next offseason after he had suffered the knee injury that wiped out most of 2018. It happened again after 2019 when he had a 10-point lead midway through the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. And the only time that it didn't happen was 2020 when they drafted Trey Lance after making the trade. Then Jimmy, I kept hearing what a great offseason he was having. That was code for he's here and he's engaged. And he did have a really impressive season last year, given the injuries he fought through. But then, somewhat predictably, after last season ended with the NFC Championship game defeat, he not only stopped communicating, but he went and got his shoulder taken care of on his throwing arm, which they were not in the loop about that decision. And then their efforts to trade him were short-circuited largely because of that. Not that he didn't need the surgery, but just the frustration returned. But at this point, they had already kind of psychically moved on to Trey Lance anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I can see people listening to this and saying, "So what? You get it." It's like, no, you're not a franchise quarterback, right? You have a regular job. Like franchise quarterback, you'd prefer not being ghosted for 7 to 8 to 9 weeks. I mean, that's
and it's and these are voluntary activities, but the job of quarterback is considered very different in the NFL, and that's one reason why they're paid what they're paid. And we saw with Kyler Murray, right? There was the infamous clause in his contract that seemed to indicate that his employers don't believe he can be counted on for sure to do outside studying. And you and I talked about that. We talked about Ben Roethlisberger and how he wasn't a big studier earlier in his career. So it could be a very sensitive issue. These guys can care deeply. They can prepare intensely. They can be very tough, but there are different degrees of obsession. And, Peyton Manning, probably tried to use every free second he could to figure out a way to get an edge. Aaron Rodgers this offseason had all these new receivers. So there was a very valid reason for him to want to get with them timing wise and start establishing that connection. And he chose to, by his own account, trip. And I'm joking around. I went to Cal. I'm not judging. But Aaron Rodgers decided not to spend a bunch of time doing that in the offseason, and he may be good enough to get away with that. Tom Brady, hit a point in New England where he wanted to be in LA in the offseason and he wasn't around much. So you can overcome it, but usually the stories of it being overcome usually have to do with guys who are first ballot Hall of Fame level talents, and not guys like Jimmy who are in that, that next tier or the one below.
Fellas, as you get set for your fantasy football draft, it's important you also make sure you draft the right tools to help you look your best. That's why Manscaped should be your top pick. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have created a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0. Join 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. 20% off, free shipping with the code Colin, COLIN. They've got the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the hair, ear, nose trimmer, travel bag, performance boxer briefs. I've got them all. They're fantastic. The 4th generation trimmer also features cutting-edge ceramic blades to reduce grooming accidents. The Weed Whacker, the Ultimate Flex, the best grooming tools on the market. Manscaped, get a grip on all your pigskin needs. Fantasy draft, manscaped.com, code Colin, 20% off. Clean it up. It's interesting. I said Garoppolo in Tampa makes a lot of sense. I don't think Tom wants to be in Tampa this year. Offensive line is all beat up. He's worked with Garoppolo before. There's no longer a threat. He's leaving the second the season's over. Garoppolo's an accurate distributor on a team with lots of really nice receiving weapons. Now you got to look at the salary cap, but you start looking around the league. Teams either have their guy, are going to be drafting their guy, Seattle, Atlanta, or are giving a young guy one more year. Jets, Giants.
Yeah.
Tampa feels right to me.
That's interesting. I mean, I think the Giants want him, and their cap is so leveraged, at least in their perception, because I think the cap can always be manipulated. But I think the Giants' perspective is, yeah, we think he's better than Daniel Jones. We would rather have him now, but it costs, even if you reduce the $24 million, which I think you would have to, it would be tough for us cap wise. And then I think the other thing with some of these teams is you think, yeah, we could maybe prop it up with Jimmy and go 7-10, 8-9 this year, and think we're better than we really are, or we could just take our lumps now and, as you said, draft the next guy a year from now. Although that logic is always tough because the NFL is so ephemeral that you think you have more time usually than you actually do when you go through rough patches, unless you work for Mike Brown. And I don't even say that pejoratively. Good for Mike Brown for sticking with Zach Taylor longer than many owners would have and giving him that third year and getting rewarded with a Super Bowl. But Tampa, that's interesting. I mean, I think if I'm Jimmy, I'd be all ears on that one. And listen, I don't, Tom's a medical marvel that at this age he is doing what he's done. And I've been expecting for years and years and years for a drop off to happen and for it to be pretty precipitous, the way it was with Peyton and the way we've seen it be with others. And he freakishly defies it year after year. But I also don't subscribe to the weird logic out there that people seem to have that he will play forever next year. Watch where he goes when he's 46. Oh my God. If he can, year 3 in Miami at age 48, like at some point it's, he's going to either get hurt or it's going to fall off quickly. And I also believe, as I think, you've certainly heard this in the past, where people say once a guy starts thinking about retiring, let alone mentioning it, you're in football, you're kind of like already retired. Well, he did it and came back, and now we don't know why he missed training camp. But maybe, as you said, he's already mentally kind of half out the door and working for Fox for lots and lots of money.
I don't know why he's gone. My guess is he retired. He promised his family 10 days in, Costa Rica or Big Sky, Montana. And, your wife and the kids, you don't break promises. That ends up being a longer season than you anticipate. I was shocked because when the story came out that Tom Brady was shopping for a mansion in Las Vegas, I said on the air, it doesn't fit his brand. Why would you want to go play Mahomes twice a year? I didn't buy it at all. Dana White has instructed us it happened, and it was close. Were you surprised by that?
No, I mean, I knew that they had thought about it, and my perception or my reported perception of what was going on with the Raiders in each of those two off seasons, the one before Brady went to Tampa, and then the next one when Russell Wilson had put them on his list of potential trade suitors, is that ownership was driving the let's get a star, you know, push. That Mark Davis had kind of reached a point with Derek Carr that he wasn't feeling it. He had this new stadium in Vegas that was getting set to open, though it turned out there would be no fans that first year, but he was all fired up. Like, we could have Tom Brady in this new stadium. And then the next year we could have Russell Wilson in this new stadium. And that the Gruden and his assistants were, though Gruden certainly wasn't a Carr, cheerleader, he had come to realize, like, look, this guy's really smart. He's pretty good. And, we think we can get better if we could just get, functional on defense and get him another weapon. So I think it does check out to me that I had heard the thing about Brady looking for houses in Vegas kind of secondhand. I don't know if that was true. And by the way, Brady could have been looking for a house in Vegas as his Vegas house, anyway, who knows? I do know that it was talked about by the Raiders. I do know that ownership was into the idea of having a star. I believe that Gruden, who is kind of known for telling everyone, you're my guy, you're my guy, you're my guy, until they're not. I believe it's possible Gruden kind of at least let it get back to Brady's camp. Yeah, you're my guy. And then when push came to shove, decided, we're going to keep Derek Carr. And in fairness, I think the 49ers did the same thing in a less celebrated way. And that may well have been his first choice, that the 49ers thought about it and said, look, we just went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy. We've got this team we think can win now. Brady is very, very old. Again, he's defying medical science, and knowing what we know now, you would have taken that. But I think they thought, what if we do this? And then the whole chemistry collapses and Brady turns out to be too old or too hurt, and we short-circuited our Super Bowl window, or we closed our Super Bowl window prematurely. So in the end, the 49ers made that same decision. The Chargers were all in, by the way. They were totally all in. But one common thing I heard from 49er and Raider people during that time and since is that when they looked at the tape of Brady in 2019, they thought he was descending. They thought the arm strength wasn't quite what it was.
Right.
And in retrospect, some of the same people have said to me, well, maybe we should have paid more attention to who his receivers were, because he definitely wasn't descending, but it looked like it.